Hey, good afternoon everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Warm, dry, and breezy conditions. Yeah, very, very dry. Under a red flag warning statewide for hazardous fire conditions. So we have very dry conditions even here on the windward side of the island, and the leeward side on all islands statewide are under a red flag warning today for extremely hazardous fire conditions, which is not good. And Kauai is even de-energizing their grid in certain locations today due to the hazard that the grid may pose under these conditions. And because we've all watched the horror that has occurred over in Lahaina on Maui, everybody in the entire state's a little jumpy over these conditions, as they should be. Today they're talking 50-mile-an-hour gusts on the leeward sides, and it's so dry on the leeward side of all the islands, it's like a desert here in the tropics. And on Maui and Lahaina, most of the area has been searched, and they're saying that now that hundreds of people will never even be found. So that's how bad the situation is. And it got me to thinking, as they're talking about all the rebuilding efforts and everything that they're going to have to do over there, I'm not hearing any discussions about making these homes independent of the grid, which I think it's time to start talking about things like that, because we all can build a small solar system to run our entire house and don't have to be on the grid anymore. And I think that that's a real conversation we should be having. I mean, if we have to start turning the grid off due to dry, hazardous conditions, we need to be rethinking about how we get our energy. And we're getting plenty of sunshine these days and plenty of wind, and we know that we can power our homes with wind and solar quite easily. And as the utility companies out here are now under numerous lawsuits for numerous things, the one thing that I haven't heard anyone talking about in any of these rebuilding efforts that are going to start taking place is, let's make your homes independent. It can be done. I've showed you lots of people that are doing that. Do it here. Don't need the grid. Don't want the grid. So that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today, and keep that idea alive and well, especially out here. So here's 1,000 watts of solar, which basically runs the entire small household here. I mean, I do have some other systems that I've showed you guys over the years, but this was the main system right here. 1,000 watts of solar, not very expensive. These panels were all under $100 a piece. And this is running a small house, no problem. And that 1,000 watts of solar is feeding this system. Very simple. Store the power in your batteries. Runs everything in a modern house that you could possibly want. And if you had a bigger house, you could just have a bigger solar system. I mean, this is a fairly small system, as all the systems I have shown you guys out here are fairly small systems. But I make that work for the purposes that I live in. So regardless of what size home you're building, solar is still a very viable option. Be independent from the grid. I I just want to hear more and more of that being thrown into the mix, which I'm not right now. And you know, the people on Maui now are very, very, what would be the word? Afraid of the grid. A sign of the times. I mean, of course, I don't know all the circumstances around that, but I mean, there is just a lot of information coming out that is quite disturbing, actually, where I sleep well here at night on my own power. Yeah. It's not that difficult. It's just not that difficult. We should be doing this more and more. Build your own small solar system. The grid's not keeping up. The grid's not up to date. And in some cases, it's downright unsafe. So, yeah. The weather's not going to, you know, it's not going to get any better everywhere you look. Every single day, it makes the news. The weather is changing. There's no argument to be made against that anymore. And there's no reason to spend any more time arguing that point. The point is to be proactive for the world we live in now and start doing some things to offset the conditions that we're going to find ourselves for not only the rest of our lives, but for our kids and grandkids, because they're going to inherit a very hot planet here pretty quickly. So that's why I just keep beating this drum about, you know, alternative energy compared to the way us older people grew up with. Times have changed. It's time to be thinking about how we're going to continue to live here safely. Solar is one of the ways to do that. It definitely is. I mean, we do need to have some power. So, yeah. Now power lines are a fearful thing. Solar, wind, it can help make a difference. So that's my 2 cents for the day, because the news out here is still not good, and it continues not to be good. But directing the energy, my personal energy, towards trying to make a difference. And as long as I'm doing that, I figure I'm still in the fight to make things better. So I will continue building solar and showing people how to live on solar. And I hope that as rebuilding efforts happen on Lahaina and every other place that is affected with the current conditions that we find ourselves in, that we start looking at alternatives to old, archaic ways of living on this planet. Yeah, that's my 2 cents. Aloha. And it's dry, like they say, dry as a popcorn fart out here too.